So some of the general tips after we get the background models prepared, whether it's through a client model evaluation or whether Vico modeled them for you. Some of the general things about coordination once we get it kicked off. Our approach is typically contracted first with the GC, the construction manager, or the owner. And we like to get involved in the pre-construction phase, preferably before buyout happens. And that's because we're able to go in there and we're able to find 80% to 90% of the clashes in this early phase coordination. And when we do that, we would expect that the bidding subcontractors sharpen their numbers. So instead of having to add extra contingency or padding in there for coordination, we'd like to see those numbers come down a little bit. And we understand that before anyone would sharpen their number based upon what we've done, we need to really demonstrate to them what it is we did, what assumptions we made, where we're coming from, and most importantly, we want to demonstrate our credibility. We want to show everyone that we've done this hundreds of times. We know what we're doing. We're experienced in the NEPF modeling, and we want them to believe in our solution so that they can feel comfortable trimming down their number and subsequently get a competitive advantage towards winning the project. And then again, we have an option to extend all of this early phase coordination, so the 80 to 90% of the issues that we find, we can contract further with the subs to start to capture some of their more specific stuff like preferred means and methods, preferred materials, maybe code compliance or prefabrication, anything that they may want to do to really internalize the work that we get started for them. We're available to work with them independently and hopefully help become one of their BIM tools. So to do all of this, we have a very powerful scope of work document. Whenever you engage with Vico services, you would see this scope of work document, and we evolve it from a proposal into a scope of work document and into a project plan. And I'll actually show you that scope of work in just a moment, but what we've got in there is the content. So we've kind of pioneered the level of detail idea. And we'll spell right out what the different content and the different level of detail that content is going to be represented at will be. We give explicit element descriptions, so we'll tell you if we're going to do perhaps a generic representation of design intent equipment because maybe the submittals haven't gone in yet or they haven't been approved yet, or we'll tell you that we are including insulation. So whatever special needs a project may have to make sure that their coordination is coming out the way they expect, we've got a field in there where we can kind of detail out and text whatever it is they may want. We'll also detail out the deliverables and all the outputs that are going to come from the process. In that scope of work document, which I'm just about to show you, there is a little bit of text in the beginning. And it really describes how we were able to come up with an approach to resolving these coordination issues. Hopefully everyone can take a moment to read what's here on the screen. I don't typically like to put this much text in a presentation, but I think that it says pretty well what we're doing here. So we use that system priority structure, and by modeling in that order, we can make sure that the biggest and the most expensive elements in the construction process are put in place in the virtual model before the cheaper and secondary elements are put in place. And so as we make clash decisions, we can make the decisions that are most cost-effective and efficient for the project. We've also got a little bit of language in here again. Having done this for so long, we understand what diagrammatic intent means. We understand that engineers make their models and their designs for a different purpose than construction does. And we take the responsibility to detail out that diagrammatic intent to what's really needed for the installation of that project. This is another small part of language that we use in most of our coordination projects. This phrase right here means a pair of offset fittings says that we're comfortable and we're more than happy to, for example, put a pair of 45s up and then 45 back down to avoid a clash with something. But if it's going to take some kind of complex rolling offset where you need to go up on a 45, kick it off to the side, wrap all the way around the corner, we think that compromises the design intent, and we do think that that's a design issue that needs to be looked at. And so that's what becomes part of our constructability report. So a pair of offset fittings, again, just kind of a general rule of thumb. It can be adapted to individual projects, but that's basically where we feel comfortable making the adjustments. And then this is a huge part of our coordination service, transparency. It's all about transparency for us. We have no intentions of working in a vacuum and holding everything in just for ourselves and then showing up 4 or 5 weeks later and saying, here's what we did, try and digest it. Rather, we have an on-site kickoff meeting with all the participants involved. We have weekly review meetings. We do those via GoToMeeting, just like this presentation we're in now. And we just get everyone involved and we show them what's going on in the project, what kind of progress we've made, what kind of assumptions we're making, and stuff like that. So this thing here is really, our whole service is just all about transparency. So with that said, I will show you our scope of work document. This is the scope of work where we just, from the outset, we talk about what level of detail you expect this project to be at. So as we change this level of detail, you can see it's populating these fields down here. We can decide what's included to meet the client's needs or what is not being modeled. So for example, in this case, site work is not being modeled, but we do want to do the mechanical and we want to do everything to an average level of detail of 300. Further down in the scope, again, is that list of elements that I showed a little bit earlier. So you're probably starting to see on the right-hand side how we've got this pink and green sort of matrix. This is an automation that we've come up with in our scope of work so that when we say something needs to be modeled at an LOD 300, we've already figured out what needs to be included so that if you're going to model this element and a secondary item might be dependent on it, hangers for example, all of that is pre-scripted in this document. So we've gone through enough kind of process to say that if you want B, then you need A. If you want C, then you're going to need B and A before that. And so that's the nice thing about this LOD and this kind of scripted and integrated document. You can also see that we have overrides here for anything that's special to the project that may need to be more detailed. We can address that right here and get your additional LOD. This document then becomes the proposal. So this is how we will propose the service for you. Again, just going through and clarifying everything that we intend to deliver to you. That turns into our scope of work document. So all very much integrated, but the proposal we give you matches the scope that we give you. In here we can break down what we call the payment terms and the delivery dates. So we'll tell you when we're going to give you each of the phases, and we work with you to make sure that you're getting everything in the right order you need. For example, your project, timing-wise, you may want us to work in the penthouse first, then go down to level 4, then level 1, then level 2 and 3. We can do that for you, and we can set it up right in here in the scope of work. And that turns into our project information sheet, which is an internal guide for how we go about executing this.